Hello, my name's John Schwandt. I'm a professor of classical languages at New St. Andrews College, and I direct the Institute of Biblical Greek at www.biblicalgreek.org. I want to discuss the different types of classical language courses that are available and how they differ from modern language courses. Or not. I guess there are some available that really are taught like modern languages. Now, these are few and far between, but I do want to distinguish this type of foreign language learning. And the way that I distinguish this is by the two terms monolingual versus bilingual. Now, it might seem ironic to talk about foreign language learning as monolingual, but that's what goes on in most classical or biblical language courses. The foreign language is treated as an object of study like biology, and then everyone thinks about it and learns about it very deeply, but always in English terms. So there's never any thinking going on in Greek. Now, this is different from how modern languages are taught, where you're encouraged and you must think in the foreign language to keep up in conversation. So that's what I would describe as bilingual education, where you have two languages involved, the foreign language and the home language, and monolanguage education, where the foreign language becomes an object of study and you just think about it in terms of your home language. Now, there are benefits and negatives on both sides. Both have value. I'm not trying to criticize the majority of classical language classes out there. In fact, I teach a monolanguage course myself. I also teach a course for fluency, a bilingual classical language course, but I think there's value in both. But I think it's more important that we understand the distinction and avoid the equivocation of this is a Greek course, so I must be learning the language itself rather than learning about it. We have to ask that next question. Will I be thinking in the language or just learning about it? That's the only way you're going to be able to choose the right course for your goals. Since most of the ancient language courses that you will find are monolingual, let's start talking about the pros and cons of those first. The first benefit of a monolingual ancient language course is the selection. Nearly every course that you find will be a monolingual ancient language course, and so you have plenty to choose between. Some of them will try to be bilingual, and they'll do that for the first 2 weeks, maybe first week or first chapter, but then quickly they'll revert to encoding, decoding type of teaching methods. But within this method, you have a huge array of options, and there's probably a course near you. So that's a big benefit. Another major benefit, and the one that is usually used as the primary defense for this type of teaching method, is that it takes less time than learning a language for fluency. Now, when I learned Greek, there really wasn't much difference. Most Greek courses were 2 years in the monolingual approach, and you could take a fluency course in a modern language and be pretty far along in 2 years. So there wasn't that big a difference. However, today, with the benefits of computers, we don't really need to memorize all of the paradigms and vocabulary because the computer can serve that up to us. We merely need to know the structure, syntax, logic of the language and how to encode or decode it. And so a lot of schools are still stuck in the old method of making you be the computer, memorizing all the paradigms and vocabulary. And for some reason, they think that's learning Greek, but it really isn't. It's learning about Greek. And if you're focused on saving time, I just don't understand the consistency here of not using computers to help with the decoding process. And if you do use computers to help with the decoding process, you can really get through learning the structure of a language in about a week and use the rest of that year practicing exegesis and interpretation. And I think that would be a huge benefit of that type of monolingual course. Unfortunately, there's not that many that are really that consistent. Most of them in this method still make you be the computer. Now, on the negative side, this approach does limit your appreciation and understanding of the original text. If you're only thinking of it through English terms, you're not going to catch all of the interlingual, intertextual connections that a fluent reader or speaker of the language would have in the back of their mind. You're going to be connecting English words to English words rather than Greek words to Greek words. And by connecting, I mean, when we mention a word, a lot of other words and ideas kind of come along with that in the background. And so this is not meaning that you're going to have a completely different understanding of a text than a fluent reader, but you're going to miss some appreciation, richness of the text, and some of the intertextual connections. Another negative is that a monolingual approach does put a degree of separation between you and the text. You don't have immediate understanding. And a lot of reasons why people want to learn ancient Greek or biblical Greek is to have that direct access to the original text. I remember my Greek instructor saying that reading a translation of the New Testament was like handling it with gloves on. And I would certainly agree with him. A translation of a text does offer a degree of separation. In fact, translations often tell us more about the receiving culture than the source culture and source text. But again, we don't want to equivocate here. If we are approaching the language from a monolingual standpoint, we're not taking those gloves off entirely. We might be down to latex gloves or something like that, but we still are just dealing with the text in terms of English. It's only when we have immediate understanding and can get some copious reading going on with a fluent understanding of the language where we will be able to take those gloves off and appreciate the language immediately. Now, I don't want these negatives to make it sound like I'm saying that a monolingual approach to learning ancient Greek is no better than reading a translation. That's not the case at all. If you have to choose between dealing with translations and having an understanding of the ancient language, knowing a lot about it and being able to decode it, well, the monolingual approach is going to get you way, way deeper into the original text than a translation will. So for that reason, I commend anyone and everyone who is investing the time and energy to learn that much about the language. And I hope eventually they will want to know even more about it and catch the bug that I got and want to take those thin latex gloves off and actually not have to deal with the issue of decoding it all, but jump all the way in and swim around in the original language itself. But here's the catch. The monolingual approach is not halfway to the bilingual approach. They're completely different approaches. And if you decide that after 20 years of decoding the text, you really want to become fluent with it, you're going to have to start over, which is fine and fun. That's what I had to do. And I'm still working on my fluency. But a lot of people think that first they'll go down the monolingual side, learn a lot about the language, and that they'll be that much closer to being fluent. Or a lot of the monolingual courses present themselves as stepping towards fluency, when really that's not their goal at all. Their goal is to teach a lot about the language so you can do original language exegesis in English terms. So I hope that distinction is clear. All right, let's move on to the bilingual, the fluency side of things, and discuss the pros and cons of that approach. The major problem or negative with this type of approach is that you can't find a course hardly anywhere that teaches ancient Greek or biblical Greek from a bilingual point of view or teaches you towards fluency. If you know of any, please email me, let me know, because there are just a few of us instructors daring to go down this road, and I love to work together with as many as possible, but it is a really small band of us. And for this reason, I offer this type of course at the Institute of Biblical Greek online, so you can have access to this type of course. Another negative to this approach is how much time it takes. To become fluent, you have to experience it and be patient, not try to learn too much too quickly. You have to learn a little bit and get very comfortable using it and repeating it again and again until you're not thinking about it. It's just immediate. You have to converse where your timing is forced by the conversation. When you're reading, you have all the time in the world to analyze and inspect a particular word. But when you're speaking, you must deal with the language as it comes. You must understand it. The words are coming at you very quickly. And then to speak it, you're going to have to form them very quickly. And so you'll be forced
to do things immediately and automatically, as the language will become reflex. In order to condition yourself to have these reflexes, you just need time with it. Now, after a year, you'll be able to converse in basic conversations. I mean, if you were plopped down in ancient Greece, you would be able to get by. I mean, you wouldn't be the most eloquent speaker, but you'd be able to get by. You'd be able to read the New Testament. After 2 years of doing this, you'll actually have a pretty good command. And hopefully by that point, you can start getting copious in your reading of Greek, being able to read material, turning pages, reading paragraphs quickly instead of agonizing sentence by sentence or clause by clause. So this negative of taking more time at the beginning actually turns into a positive, because you're going to be able to read much more quickly than a person who's decoding. And you'll be doing this without a lot of fatigue. So the negative is more time at the beginning, but at the end of that, you get a lot more value for your time. You're able to get more done quickly and enjoyably. And that leads into another positive, that you actually get to read the text rather than think about the implications of grammar, of constructions. You actually are getting the text as language, as a whole unit. This is not to say that a bilingual approach doesn't teach grammar, or people who go down this approach don't understand grammar. They should. In a good course, you should understand just as much grammar either way. The difference is, are you involving two languages? Are you actually thinking in two languages? Or are you just thinking in one? And this leads me to the last positive I'm going to mention here, and that is that you're actually learning a foreign language rather than learning about it. So you're learning the foreign language and culture. You will be equipped to read a lot in this language and get a better idea of the concepts and thoughts that attend each word or clause, or the way things are said, be able to appreciate what is not said. If you have a degree of fluency, you can anticipate how you would say something. And if the author changes direction, that kind of surprise and meaning is going to be available to someone who has this conversational or compositional understanding of the language.
At the Institute of Biblical Greek, I offer both kinds of courses. I have a year-long fluency course. So that's a bilingual course where you are listening to Greek stories, you're speaking, we're talking in Greek to one another, you're composing in Greek. I'm training you to think in Greek so that when you read it, you're not having to translate. That's a year-long course. It works through the Athenazaic curriculum, Volume 1, and it's followed by a second-year course at the intermediate level if you would like to do that as well. But both of those courses are at the bilingual level. They are designed for fluency. I have a monolingual course that trains you to understand how the language works just in terms of English. So if you're a church leader and don't want to become fluent in the language, you just want to dive deeper into the scriptures and work with the original languages, I have a course that uses computer software to do all the parsing for you. And then I teach you how to interpret that information. What do you do with all that data that the computer can give you? So that's a 15-hour course. I do that online or in local cities as well. I call that either Greek in a Week or New Testament language training or original language seminars. You can find that at the Institute of Biblical Greek as well. And then I have another course that is designed for people who have learned some Greek in the past through any method and want to maintain it or progress further. And so I have a reading group where it's not so much a structured course, where we work through 10 verses a week. You're welcome to join, and we're a small group, and we just read 10 verses together. I end up musing on each verse what I find interesting in the grammar and etymology, the vocabulary, and there's a low bar for what you have to prepare each week, but it's a great way to maintain your skills or to push them a little farther on the intermediate level. So those are my three courses I offer online: the fluency course, the year-long fluency course, the 15-hour intensive grammar course, the logic of the language, and then the weekly reading group. If you're looking for a Greek course, hopefully one of these courses will suit your needs. Let me know if I can help.